Hi, Dr. Rick Harnish here. Welcome to another virtual office hour. In today's virtual office hour, I'll be talking about my research interests. And surprisingly enough, we're in the research lab. In terms of my research interests, there are three broad categories: attitudes, attitude change, social influence, and person perception. Regarding attitudes and attitude change, I'm very interested in functional theories of attitudes. Specifically, four attitude functions have been identified. There's the ego-defensive. These attitudes protect us from undesirable truths about ourselves. A knowledge function, simply knowledge that we have about objects. And then the two functions that I spend most of my time focusing research on, social adjustive as well as the value expressive functions of attitudes. The social adjustive functions allow us to express attitudes about ourselves that allow us to fit into important social situations. The value expressive functions allow us to express certain important aspects about ourselves. Regarding the functional theories of attitudes, while we understand that the attitudes fulfill certain functions for us, it was very difficult to make some predictions about the dominance, that is the motivation that an individual might have regarding the various attitude functions. So back in the mid-80s, Mark Snyder and his grad student Ken DeBono started looking at self-monitoring theory. And self-monitoring theory posits that there are two types of individuals in the world. There are high self-monitors and low self-monitors. High self-monitors are those that are very attuned to the social situation in which they find themselves. They have the ability or the motivation to maybe change their personality to fit into any social situation that they might find themselves. Low self-monitors, on the other hand, lack this ability. Rather than bending to the pressures or the norms that might be found in various social situations, they rely upon their own internal dispositions, their own values, as a guide for how to behave in various social situations. What Snyder proposes is that high self-monitors have more or less a chameleon-type personality. They can be very different people in very different situations, while low self-monitors are the same person regardless of the situation in which they find themselves. Now, what Ken DeBono and Mark Snyder theorized was that this personality variable might be very important in identifying the motivations of individuals and how those functional theories of attitudes might fit together. So they did a number of studies, looked at the self-monitoring propensity of individuals and the types of attitudes that they hold. What they find is that indeed high self-monitors tend to hold more social adjustive attitudes. They are much more persuaded if a message argument has a social adjustive theme to it, versus low self-monitors who are more persuaded by facts and figures. Ken DeBono talks about how high self-monitors are attracted to the soft sell in advertising versus low self-monitors that are more persuaded by the hard sell in advertising. The hard sell being facts, figures, that type of thing. Where my research has led, and I did work with Ken when I was at Michigan State when he was there, and the evolution of this line of research, I've started looking at advice giving. And in a number of studies that my colleague Rob Bridges and I have done, we find that high self-monitors turn to other high self-monitors for advice. Low self-monitors tend to turn to other low self-monitors for advice. And the advice given fulfills these attitude functions that high self-monitors, when we do a content analysis of their advice, the themes that revolve around social adjustive attitudes or functions come to the fore. So, for example, in dating, it's not so much personality issues that high self-monitors will talk about, but they'll talk about physical attractiveness, wearing the latest maybe fashion trends, going to the hippest clubs, that kind of thing, to attract a potential dating partner, where low self-monitors will talk about being true to yourself, letting your own personality shine through. That's the best way to find a potential dating partner. In terms of person perception, I'm very interested in misperception of friendliness cues. This line of research goes back to when I was an undergraduate at Penn State University. And I worked with Tony Abbey back in the early 80s when she started looking at misperceptions of friendliness cues. We've manipulated clothing cues, that type of thing, and we found that males tend to use clothing cues as indicators of sexual availability or sexual interest, where females, on the other hand, looked at those types of cues as being more stylish rather than sexy or promiscuous. Well, this line of research has continued. We're developing a sexual intent scale to identify individuals that are more prone to misperceiving friendliness cues. Certainly, there are females, in addition to males, that misperceive these cues. So hopefully, we'll develop a rather robust measure. We're currently looking at some validity studies, and we hope to have those wrapped up very, very shortly. Thanks again for joining us on a virtual office hour and my discussion of my research interests.